Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. Today's project is going to be another boxy bag, and this time we're going to make this using two different types of fabric and also two different sizes. I don't have a product to show you yet, so if you're really keen you can fast forward to the end of the video and check out what it looks like and then come right on back. This piece of fabric is an upholstery fabric or furnishing fabric. We're going to make a big boxy bag using that one piece as well as a piece for the lining, and with that bag I'm going to be using the strapping that I use for all my handles, and I'll be using a continuous zip with a couple of sliders. The next bag I'll be using quilting cotton. It's slightly smaller, that's also going to be lined, and we have a regular dress zip, and we'll be making handles for this one. So this one will only have the one slider on it that comes with it, the other one will have two. I'm using the same stabilizer for both of them, and I think that's about it. Let's get to it. All right, here's everything we're going to be using. The stabilizer I'm using today is an iron-on Parlan. That's the name of it. You can use any type of stabilizer you like. If you want something really rigid, use a lightweight Decaville or a Peltex. I'm going for something nice and soft. So this is a lightweight Parlan, or it's also known as Pallan and by lots of other names as well. So really just use whatever stabilizer you want to use. For the handmade handles, I'm using a fusible hemming tape. This is an iron-on hemming tape, also known as Stitch Witchery in the US, and I think it's a product made by Vilene, as well as many other companies. But it's a double-sided fusible hemming tape. For the cotton bag that I'm making, we need two pieces of fabric for the handles. We need a regular dress zip. You can use your continuous zips as well if you want to. I'm just showing you two different options. We want a piece of fabric for the outer bag, and we also want a piece of lining for the same bag. And I'm stabilizing both pieces of fabric. So my lining and my outer fabric are going to be stabilized today. With the upholstery fabric, I have a continuous zip. This is a number 5. Again, if you want to, you can actually just use your regular dress zip. You just need one long enough. I'll be using strapping or webbing for my handles. This is a product I use for almost all of my bags. It saves me a lot of time in not having to make handles. And I've got a couple of zip sliders for that one. I'm going to put 2 sliders on it. For the fabric, I have this really big piece of upholstery fabric. This is the piece that was given to me in this size, so I'm working with it as is. In my business, I want to try and eliminate the amount of work I have to do, so if I see a piece of fabric, then I'll work with it as it is. And I have that one stabilized with a piece of lightweight fusible Parlan. And on the inside of that, I will have a piece of lining as well. So here are all the materials that you're going to need for each of the bags. Okay, we're going to start off with the bigger bag, and the first thing you want to do is iron your stabilizer to the wrong side of the outer fabric. Once you've done that, we can take our continuous zip and we're going to place that on the short edge. So this piece of fabric for me measures 21 inches across here and 23 inches across that way. So on the shorter side, I'm going to place my zip. Take your zipper tape and place that with the teeth faced down and along the top edge of your fabric like that. And you can pin it or clip it or even baste it if you like. I'm going to be using double-sided tape, and I'll run that along the entire edge of the fabric, and that will keep my zip in place whilst I sew it. It'll also help prevent all of the layers from shifting. Place your zip evenly across the fabric there, and then we can take our lining, and with the right sides facing, we can place that over the zipper tape as well. That's our printed side. We'll have those facing. So line up your fabric evenly along the sides and then along the top edge. Once again, you can pin or clip or baste this together. If you're new, what you might want to do is go and sew this row first, then come back and do this. Using the double-sided tape helps eliminate some of that time that we spend doing things twice. So by putting the tape on, means I can actually go and sew all of this in one go, and I don't have to worry about pins or clips being in my way. Place that right along the top there and press that down gently. Okay, that one's ready to be sewn in place now. When I take this to the machine, I'll actually have my stabilizer faced up rather than the lining fabric. Even though this is secured with double-sided tape, I find that the lining is a little bit too flimsy, and the pressure from the presser foot has a tendency to push the fabric. So we will sew that with the stabilizer faced up. Set that one aside. We'll grab the fabric that we need for our handles. I've already gone and stabilized mine, but what you will do is take the raw edges and fold them into the center like I've done here, and then you'll fold that in half again, give it a really good press, and then we can sew down both long edges. Now the stabilizer you use is completely up to you, but what I've used is that hemming tape or stitch witchery, and what I've done is I've placed it underneath these two layers. So I've put one on this side, one on the other side, put the fabric over the top, pressed it, and then pressed it again. And that just gives me a nice thin handle, but it's got a lot of stability with it. So let's take the handles and the other bag over to the machine, and we'll sew the zip in place and stitch up the handles. I'll start off with the opening side first. And then I'll come back to the beginning and sew the other side. I've put my zipper foot on and off I go. And whilst we're at the machine, we might as well top stitch this as well. So separate the lining and the outer and just press those edges so that they sit nicely, and place the lining behind your outer fabric. Alright, we've got the zip inserted on one side, the handles have been sewn up. So what we're going to do is place the handles onto our fabric. Let's separate the fabric, and you'll actually do this before you put any zips on at all. So we're going to mark 1 inch from the side. This is the shortest side of the fabric. Measure the same 1 inch from the other side. You don't need to go all the way across. Fold the fabric in half here. Find the centre and mark it, like I have here. From the centre, we're going to measure out 4 inches. Let's make it 3.5 inches or 9 centimetres. And same on this side. And we have 1 inch down from the top edge. Take your webbing. Now, this piece is 4 inches longer than this piece here, and it's going to be the same on the other bag that I make as well. So that's just a simple guide as to how much extra webbing you want to have on for your handles. Place the edge of your handle onto the edge of your fabric at that 1 inch line that we've made. Same on this end, and then start pinning the rest of the handle in place along that 1 inch mark that you've made up to this measurement that we've come out from the centre. So with every bag that you do that's a different size, that measurement will be a little bit different, and it really comes down to personal choice. You can make the handle part as long or short as you like. So we've got the handle pinned together from the outside in on both sides, and then we've got this area here, and that's going to be our carry handle for our bag. You'll do exactly the same for the other side. Now for the other side, I'd accidentally gone and put my zip on first. Because I've gone and sewn my zip in first, there's a little bit of a seam underneath, so I've taken that into account and made sure the measurements are the same distance apart by the time the zip's been put in place. So the handles are in place for both sides of this bag. Whilst we've got this one here, let's separate the zipper tape. So what we need to do now is sew along the top edge of our strap, come down here, sew along that side there, do the same on this side. You'll sew along, come down and across again. I usually like to triple stitch around here, and if you like you can actually come back and make a little bit of a box, and that'll just give you some extra support here. I don't usually do that on my bags. I usually just triple stitch a few times in a couple of places, but for this one I will go down, across, up, across, then come back down and go across. We'll do the same for the other side, making sure that the lining is out of the way when you do that. Now this one here, this is the way that you should actually be doing it. I shouldn't have put the zip on earlier. So using the shortest edge of the fabric, grab the end of your handle, place that on the edge of your fabric, 2 centimetres or 3/4 of an inch from the edge. Same on the other end. Find the centre here. And from the centre, for this size bag, we're going to measure 2.5 inches, and same on the other side. So this mark and this mark here are the stopping points for our handle. Pop a pin in place. So I've pinned up to the mark that I've made here, and also from the outside up to that mark I've made there as well. That's the position of the opening of our handles. So we're going to sew from the end, in, down, across a little bit, go up, across, down, and come all the way to the end. And you'll do the same on this side. You'll do the same for the other handle. So once again, the handle measures 2 centimetres or 3/4 of an inch from the edge. Line it up with those marks you've made. Place a pin where you're going to stop sewing and secure it with a pin just to keep it in place. So we will go and sew this one and this one. I'll start off with this one so that you can actually see where I'm sewing. It's a little bit difficult with the other one having the same fabric pieces. So this is where I've made my mark here. I'm going to sew down here. I'll go back, go forward, turn again, and I'll come forward, I don't know, an inch or 3/4 of an inch. I'll just use my label as a guide. Then I'll turn, back and forward again, turn again, and I'm back to the position that I've done the triple stitching already. We'll go down there one more time, turn one more time, and sew on to the end. Once you've done that side, Do the same at the other end. Once again, I'll turn my work. Go back to the centre. And finish up. And I will do exactly the same for the other side. So at the other end, I'd accidentally sewn my zip on first. As long as I keep my lining out of the way, that's not going to be a problem. And now we can do the same for the other handles. All right, let's go back to this one. So I've already sewn the zip on this side. I've removed the other side of the tape, and we're going to place that up along here. Move that lining out of the way. Run some more double-sided tape along the top edge. Grab your zipper tape. This coil here needs to be facing toward me or toward the middle of the bag and faced down. So you want the straight edge of your tape along the straight edge of your fabric. I usually cut mine a little bit longer than my fabric. That will allow for any unevenness on the other side when I bring them together. Run another bit of tape along the top. Once again, you can just pin it, and we'll grab our lining. And I might just pin this handle out of the way for the time being so that it sits a little bit more flat. Line up the side edges and then the top. So we can take that one to the machine and sew that zip in place, then we'll turn it the right way out and top stitch. Now this one here, we're going to be using a regular dress zip. So it's going to be installed slightly differently. So I've got my zip. This is the front of my bag, and I want my zip to open from left to right, like that. Ideally, if you've got something a little bit longer than what you need here, that will be better for you. This one just fits. So I've got the metal bars here and on this end, and they're just on the outside of my fabric, which is perfect because I don't want them anywhere near my bag. I'll pop some double-sided tape down again. Move that handle out of the way again as well. And we're going to put our zip face down over the top edge of the fabric, and where those metal clips are, I'll line that up on the outside and then line that up the rest of the way across. And you'll see the clips are on the outside of the fabric here too. We can take our lining for this one. Remember, I've stabilised the back of this as well. I just wanted to give this bag a little bit more body, a bit more tape. I really like this print. And again, I will line up those sides and the top. Let's take that to the machine as well. We'll do that side, then we'll top stitch. We'll also do this zip as well. So that's both sides of the zip done on this bag. I'll turn it the right way out and I'll finger press that lining away from the zip. And then we'll bring the lining behind the outer fabric and top stitch. Now, even though I've got stabiliser on both sides, I'm actually going to sew with the outer fabric at the top. And that's because the coils of the zipper teeth here are facing up. And I like to feel that ridge or the bump from the teeth as I'm going along. Move your slider out of the way if it's in your way. And we'll open that fabric out as well. Just finger press that lining away from the zip and we can top stitch that. And for those that need to know, I'm just using a regular universal 90 or size 14 needle. All right, we've got one side of this zip done. We still need to do the other end, and we'll have a look at the other one shortly. I'm going to mark a reference line on the end of my zip here, and it's just to help me line up the zip with the edge of the fabric. The metal tab will do that as well. Bring up the other end, and we need to open up the zip from the other end of the bag. Grab this tape and place that over the top here, and we'll line up that mark we've made, or that metal tab, with the end of our fabric and press that in place. This is where a longer zip comes in really handy, because you can open it out all the way and none of this fabric will be in your way. I'll run another strip of tape over that, peel off the paper, and then we'll grab the other side of our lining and place that over the top. And to prevent that tape from coming apart, I've just popped a clip in the end there. Let's go and sew that one. Once you've done that, open the zip all the way and turn your bag the right way out. With the zip open all the way, turn your fabric around so that you've got the closed end of your zip ready to go under the presser foot. So I've moved my lining to the back, place the fabric underneath the presser foot, and just move that bulk of fabric out of your way. And then when you're happy with that, you can start top stitching. And just remember to smooth out your lining as you go. All right, the top stitching for this has been done, and what I'm going to do here, just to make things a little bit easier for myself, is close up my zip most of the way, and I'm going to go back to the machine and just close up the teeth on this side here, and I will do that on this as well once we've put our sliders on. With the right side facing up, line up the straight edge of your fabric and then cut straight across the zipper teeth so that it's nice and straight. Take the curved edge of your slide and place that over one side, and then we'll place the teeth in on the other side. Hold it in place with your thumb just there, and I've got my finger holding it in place on the back there, and I've got the tape evenly across. Push that forward and you'll hear it click when it locks into place, and then you can just close up the zip. And if that's nice and straight the way you cut it, then you're right to continue on. Turn it around, close that zip as much as you want to, and you can see that's uneven along here, so we'll cut that across as well. And once again, with the curved edge facing me, line that up. You'll hear the click and push it forward. And then once you push your zip in, you want to make sure that it's sitting nice and evenly when the two pieces meet up. You don't want one kinking up more than the other. If you're happy with that, bring your sliders to the middle, and just like with this one here, I'm going to close just the end up here. I'll do the same along here. I'm not going to sew through the lining or anything. I just want to stitch the two ends closed. That way I won't accidentally open everything up when I turn this inside out. I'll quickly go and sew those ends up now. So I've done that at both ends of the zip. You can see the two bags are going to be quite different in size, yet the pattern is exactly the same. It's at this point you want to make sure that your zip is open at least halfway. And on this one here, we've got 2 sliders. You want to have a nice opening in the middle there. Let's turn this inside out and separate the lining and the outer fabric. Once you've done that, line up the fabric on the edge of your zip. Find the center over here. And we can take a cut out of that or mark it with a pin. Do the same on this side. Same with the lining. You'll notice that I don't have 2 separate pieces for the lining, so therefore we're not having an opening along the bottom. I would have it at the side. I have a trick to doing false bottoms on my linings. It saves me having to cut out 2 pieces of fabric. So where that nick has been taken out on the bottom, you can finger press that. What I'm going to do is create a false bottom on this one, but not on the other one. So I'm going to have 2 separate openings. That way you can choose which one you like. So our opening for turning the bag through is going to be around about here. That's probably about 6 inches or so. What I do is start about here, and I'll start sewing from nothing, just like doing a dart. Sew along like this. You can stop here with a back stitch, but what I do is continue on with my normal 1/4 of an inch seam here as well. So here I will do a back stitch, and here I'll do a back stitch. Then I'll continue on and taper back down to nothing. And remember, I'm going to have some box corners here. And I'll back stitch at the beginning and the end here as well. So I'll go and stitch across here, back stitch there, and continue on. And that will create my false bottom. It makes no difference to your side seams when you're matching them up later. But what happens is that you can open up the stitches in between here and then slice this open with a seam ripper, and you've got an opening at the bottom of your bag. I'm going to do that for this one, but not the other. So I'm starting at nothing, probably about 3 or 4 inches in from the outside edge. And just gently taper up or in. This is where I'd like to start my opening, so I'll back stitch here, continue on. This is where I'd like to end my opening. So I'll back stitch here and continue on and taper down to nothing, about 3 or 4 inches from the outside edge again. So here we have our tapered edge, our straight edge, and then it's tapered down again. In between the areas where you've back stitched, you can undo some stitching and pull that thread out. And then with scissors or a seam ripper, you can open up this section here. I'll just go in with the point of my seam ripper right on the fold. I'll come back a little bit further though, maybe 3/4 of an inch. Start ripping. You can use scissors if you want to. Continue on, and when you get to your mark here, go about 3/4 of an inch further on, and that's the opening for the bottom of our bag. And when we're finished, we can turn our whole bag in through here. Let's go back to the center. Open out the outer fabric and line up that notch with your zip here. And just clip that in place for now. Do the same on this side. So we've got the notches lined up with the centre of our zipper tape. For the lining fabric, we're going to do the same. Line up this notch here with the middle of your zip, clip that together. And then we have everything nicely lined up and we can start marking our box corners. Now this is the large bag, so we're going to have larger corners. And in this case, the size of the box corners is going to determine the height of our bag. So if I just mark a 2-inch box corner, then the front of my bag from the base up will be double that in height. And I think I can afford to have a little bit more height than that, because otherwise it'll make it a very fat bag going across that way. This here is the position of my webbing on the other side, so we can't go any bigger than that. So what I'm going to do here is mark in my seam allowance. Your seam allowance is completely up to you. I'm going to make mine 1 centimetre. So with the seam allowance marked in and the lining and the outer fabric all lined up nicely, I can measure my box corner. We're going to measure 2.5 inches or about 6.5 centimetres from the stitching line and also from the folded edge. So that's our stitching line down here, and then we have a nice square corner. So I'll go and mark that in on all 4 corners. When you're determining what size you want your box corners to be, you not only have to keep this seam line in mind, but you also need to keep it in mind around here as well. So we're going to be cutting our fabric out along here, but our stitching line is going to be out here. So that's going to make our box corners even bigger. So you need to keep that in mind. Once you're happy with your corners, we can cut that out, and we'll cut through all the layers. Okay, so the corners have been cut out. You can keep these and make up some little tiny zippered purses. So I have shown you how to do those before. I'll pop a link to that video so that you can go and use up your scraps. Now we have all our corners cut out. We need to sew up our side seams. But what I'm going to do first, whilst this is all clipped together, is separate the lining and the outer fabric. And we'll sew the lining from here down to the edge of your zip as far as you can go. So start here and sew up to here and backstitch at the beginning and the end. Same on this side here. Move the outer fabric out of the way and stitch along here. When you've done that, you'll flip it around and do the same thing for the outer fabric. Stitch straight across there until you can't go any further, and then from here down to the end of your box corner. Once you've done that, there'll be a section of stitching that hasn't been done in between here. Start here and go along and finish just that centre part of the stitching. That will give you the freedom to manipulate your box corners when you come to it, and it will also sew everything securely in place. Do the same on this side. Let's grab the other one. We'll turn this inside out, separating the lining and the outer fabric. Once again, line up the edges so that we can mark our centres. And mark our notches. Then we can line up our centre notches with our zip. Flip it over, repeat for the outer fabric and flatten that down. We're not going to put a false bottom in this one, but we will use another area of the bag to turn this the right way out. So this is the outer fabric. We're going to mark our box corners once again, and they'll be a different size to the previous bag. There's the bottom edge of my handle. So already we can't have a 2.5 inch box corner because that eats into our handle. I'll mark the seam allowance once more. And this time, I think I'll just do a 1.5 inch box corner. So that 1.5 inches that I mark from the fold, I'll cut that out, but my stitching line will be up here. So it'll make it a little bit bigger by way of sizing. And we can cut those corners out now too. Now we can take both of these back to the machine and sew them up, just as I've mentioned with this one. I'll backstitch here and sew up as far as I can go without sewing onto the lining, and backstitch. For the other side, you can start at the other end and work your way down. Then flip it over and sew the side seams of your lining in place. And just go as far as you can. So we've now done our outer fabric and our lining pieces, and you can see the stitching is finished here, and on the lining side it stopped here and here. I'll start sewing from here to here and just triple stitch over the area where the zip is. And with all of that secured now, we've got plenty of room here to manipulate our fabric when we need to close up the box corners. Let's repeat that for the other side. The lining fabric out of the way. And repeat for the other bag. Okay, there's not a lot to go now. We can trim off the excess zipper tape. Just be careful not to cut the metal bars. Okay, now this bag here is the one that's got the false bottom for our opening. Let's take our corners, open them out and pinch it together at this point here and along here, and that should give you a nice even boxed corner. We'll do that for all 4 sides. With the direction of the seam, as this is forcing the fabric to go over to my right, I'm actually going to force that fold to go to my right as well. I'll follow the direction that this wants to take. With those 4 corners all clipped together, what I would normally do to save time is find the side seam on my lining and line it up with the same side seam on the outer fabric. And I'll bring those edges together, and then I can get the rest of that opening and clip it together with the one that I've done. So there we have our outer fabric and the lining fabric clipped together, and you'll go take it to the machine and sew it all at once. Some people have found that a little bit difficult to understand or to process. So what we're going to do here, instead of doing that, I'm just going to sew up all these box corners individually, except for the one I've just clipped. I'll do that all together. With the rest of them, you can just open these out just as we did on the lining. So it's totally up to you whether or not you want to do your linings and your outer fabric at the same time, or if you want to do your linings separately to the outer fabric. If you're sewing to sell, it does save a lot of time doing them together. Grab the other bag and let's clip the lining pieces together first. So we're only going to do the box corners for 3 of them, and this is just on the lining. And once again, you'll spread the fabric out and fold the seam to the direction it wants to go. So I've got 1, 2, 3 corners done. I'm not going to worry about this one here. We're actually going to try and bring everything through that little opening. This is your outer fabric. You can go and box all those corners as well now. So all the corners have been clipped together on this one except for one of the corners on the lining. Let's take all of that to the machine and we'll sew up all of the box corners except one. So the first one I'm going to do is the one that's got the lining and the outer fabric all in one piece. I'll use that 1 centimetre seam allowance. Backstitch at the beginning and the end and also across the middle. So that's those together. Let's do the others separately. That's one bag done. Now I can do all the other corners except for one. Now the moment of truth. So all of our corners are done. It's time now to turn this the right way out. So let's go with this one first, the big one that's got the false bottom in it that we created earlier. I think that will be much easier to turn through. And hopefully you've remembered to leave your zips open. Once you're through, poke out all your corners, make it look nice and neat, pinch the edges together at the closed end and fold that seam under. We'll take that to the machine and stitch it closed. So I'll just clip that together for the moment. Let's see if we can turn this one through the little box corner. Where is it? I hope I didn't sew them all up. I did. Sometimes I wish I would listen to my own advice. I've unpicked that. Now we're going to put a hand in here and pull the fabric all the way through. And hope this works. It's not something I would do if I were using a really stiff stabilizer. There's no way you'd be able to scrunch up the fabric enough to be able to get all your fabric through. And I saw somebody else doing this the other day. And I thought, I've got to give this a go. So there we have it. That's actually quite easy. So all I have to do here is fold the edges under, press those together and stitch that closed as well. What an interesting idea. Let's go and sew those together and then we can have a look at the bag. So that's just a narrow top stitch across the opening. And the same for the lining here. And there we are, all finished, done and dusted. 2 bags of exactly the same style, but just made with 2 different sized pieces of fabric. Got a huge opening on the inside there because the zip does come down and go halfway down the side of your box. This one here, because we were able to use the continuous zip, we could put a couple of sliders in there, and that's a really nice size bag. I have a couple of zip pulls that I like to put on my sliders. Much easier to get them on with your number 5 zips because they'll go through that little hole there. And putting these on just means you don't have to go and put tabs on the side of your bags. It's one less step. The number 3 zips, or the small dress zips, are a little bit more difficult to get these little pulls on, but they can be done. What you can do is loop a piece of thread through here and then pull it through as well. Oh, that one worked well. So once again, there's no need for putting a tab on the end. And I really like the idea of having the opening on the inside of the box corner. So it's on the corner in here. Nobody ever sees the box corners. So I think that's a brilliant idea. And certainly easy to do when you've got a soft fabric or soft stabilizer like this. As I said, I wouldn't do it with something stiff. So there's the height of the bag for that one and the height of the bag for that one. Well, I've got to say, I really love these bags. How gorgeous is that? Admittedly, the fabric makes it look amazing. Just love that. Sadly, it's the only piece of fabric I have, so it's a one-of-a-kind original bag. And this floral one is really nice as well. So this is the one that's got 2 stabilizers in it. The lining is stabilized as well as the outer fabric. And given that it's a much softer fabric, it actually helps it sit really well. So it's the first time I've actually used fusible fleece on the lining and on the outer fabric. Usually I just put it on the outside. This one here just has a fusible fleece on the outside. It sits up well enough by itself already, but I just love the size of this. Easy enough to do. There's no math or anything like that that's necessary. You can make these bags in any size you like. I recommend just playing around with the fabric and having a look at different size boxed corner options. I also really liked the idea of turning the bag through the boxed corner on the inside as opposed to having the opening on the bottom of the bag. I'll still use my false seam method for most of my bags, but I do actually really like the fact that I can close up a bag or turn my bag through from a box corner. Now you can use these as toiletry bags, knitting bags. This would make an adorable little knitting or crochet or craft bag. This would be a great packing cube or something for a cosmetic artist. Perhaps you can fit loads of stuff in here. A lot of people have mentioned that I could be using a waterproof fabric on the inside. I tend not to worry about that for 2 reasons. Well, possibly 3. One is that I'm too lazy. 2 is that I don't actually have any waterproof fabric. It would mean I'd have to go and buy some, which would defeat the purpose of me making things from rescued fabric. And 3, I don't remember what 3 was. But these are all washable, so I can throw them in the machine and just hang them out to dry, maybe press them a little bit and they'll come up clean again. So if they do get a little bit dirty, I can throw them in the machine and not have to worry about that. Whereas with waterproof fabric, I may not be able to do that. I'm going to put this one in the shop for, I think, $55 and this one for $45. That's in Australia. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.